Welcome everyone. Today we're going to be doing a live webinar training for Proclaim Church Presentation Software. My name is Wyatt Shedd-Stewart. I want to go ahead and walk through the basics of the program, explain a few ways that you can put together your presentations, and then leave the rest of the time for Q&A. As people filter in here, we'll go ahead and get started with the questions, but for now I want to just launch into the application, walk through the basics of opening up your first presentation. There'll be a lot of screen sharing in this presentation, so we'll jump between the camera and then the program itself. Also, just a quick note, I'm in the middle of a bit of a cold, so if you have a hard time hearing something I say, I apologize. You can just leave a note to go ahead and have me re-say it, and I'll be glad to do that. All right, so here we are in the Proclaim presentation. When you first open up the program, it'll look a lot like this. And one of the first things that we recommend you do when you first open the program, excuse me, is start by making a new presentation. To make a new presentation, click on New here in the upper left-hand corner of the program, and you'll see that you have the option to make a blank presentation from scratch, or you could open up an example presentation. For today, let's open up the example presentation so we can get a sense for what Proclaim is capable of. As I open up my example presentation, you'll see that quite a few things are happening on the screen at once. Let's start with the fact that we are currently in the edit mode. We can see that we're in edit mode in the upper right-hand corner, and there's also a preview mode, which we'll explain in a minute. But when we're in the edit mode, there's quite a few options we have available to us as we create our presentations. From the edit mode, we're able to set up every component of our services, customize the order, and also manage all the actual content of each item within our service. And we do that through this left-hand pane, which is called the Order of Service panel. So in the Order of Service panel, you'll see there's 4 sections. There's a pre-service loop, a warm-up, a service, and a post-service loop. And you'll see there's many items in each of these sections. So for example, we have the song Amazing Grace starting out the service section. If I want to move the Amazing Grace song in my order of service, all I have to do is click on that, and then I can just click, drag, and drop it to anywhere else in the service. I can always put it back if I decide I liked it where it was originally. You'll see that whenever I select an item, like the song Amazing Grace, there's 2 panels here in the center of the editing screen. The first panel here on the left has all of the content for my item, as well as customized options I can make for the item. And the right-hand panel has what the slides will look like as they're being created. And if I were to do something like change the background here by clicking on Background, and then in this case, looking at Browse Media, which opens up the media browser, I'd be able to view through content. And what I'm going to do is actually look specifically at the Pro Media content, which is content available in the Pro Media subscription that our graphic artist teams create every month. And I'm going to go ahead and find a new background that I want to use. And as I find that background, you'll notice that currently my background looks like this kind of silent night. But if I choose a new background and apply that, the background will actually switch, and we'll get to see a dynamic view of what that change looks like, including the change in the text as well. So again, for anyone who's arriving right now, my name is Wyatt. We're walking through just the basics of the program. We're going to go ahead and keep going over the user interface. We're going to talk about tips for building your presentation. And then there's a Q&A panel actually available here. It should be there on your screen while you're watching. Feel free to ask any questions you like. There's a few that are already available and been asked. And as you ask your questions, we'll be going through those later on in the show. So here we are back in the program. We've just talked about the Order of Service panel and how we can change the background and look in the edit mode at the various items. You'll also see that down here on the bottom of the screen, we have the timeline panel. The timeline panel exists to give us a sense for how many actual slides within a given content item. So for example, in my survey item, I only have 1 slide. But in my song, I actually have multiple slides. I have the title slide plus verse 1, verse 2, verse 3, and verse 4 of Amazing Grace. There's actually 5 slides in that item, and I can see that right down here on the timeline. Now what I'd like to do is show you how you can add a new item. Say we have a second song we want to add into the service. To do that, we can click on Add Item, And you'll see that there are quite a few different types of items and cues available here to us. For now, let's just add in another song right here. And we add in the song, you'll see that you have the ability to enter the song title. I'm going to go ahead and enter that. And let's go, How Great Is Our God? A couple things are happening. As I search for the title, How Great Is Our God, the program is looking through all of my songs I've currently used in the past, and it's looking through the Song Select library by CCLI because I've linked my CCLI account to my Proclaim account. This means that not only do I have the songs I've used in the past, but I have access to all songs in the CCLI library with just a click. When I find the one I want, I can go ahead and select it. Immediately it brings in all the lyrics. It also brings in the arrangement I most recently used if I bring in a song that I've previously used. And then I'm able to choose a background, find one that I like, and apply it. And just like that, I've got a new song ready to go in my arrangement. Here on the right-hand side of the program, we have the Faith Life panel. The Faith Life panel is a place where you can communicate with the rest of your team as you're working together to create presentations. From here, you can invite new members to join your presentation. And you also have the ability to have conversations with your team members, ask questions. So for example, you could suggest other songs that you want to be added in. And then when the person who's actually building the song arrangement comes here, they can read those comments and make changes accordingly. The Faith Life panel is a great tool, but it can also take up space on a small screen. So for now, I'm going to use these double arrows to collapse that panel. I can bring it back at any time by clicking the arrows again. But for now, I want to leave that minimized just to have a little bit more space to show you some of the editing options as we're working here in the program. Again, so far we've been in the edit mode, and we've talked about the order of service panel, the timeline, and the edit screen themselves. Really quick, let's spend a little bit more time here in the order of service. I mentioned the order of service had 4 sections. There was the pre-service loop, the warm-up, the service, and the post-service loop. The reason there are 4 sections is because we've built Proclaim in such a way that it can save time for you and your team when you're putting together your presentations. And we've done that through the various sections of the program. The section you're all probably most familiar with is the service. The service is anything that you have planned between whatever the start time is for your service and when it concludes. That often is going to include things like your song arrangements, announcements, your sermon, and maybe other things like a request for tithe and offering. Now you'll see that in the service section, you can set the time that your service begins. And the reason you want to set the time your service is going to start is that allows you to take advantage of the other great sections we have within Proclaim. So if I know that my Sunday service is going to start at 11 a.m. and that at 11 a.m. I'd like the first slide to be Amazing Grace, I can then plan my content around the service for the program to be able to easily meet my needs. So for example, you'll see that before the service starts, we actually have a pre-service loop and a warm-up. And if your church is anything like mine, people arrive to service a lot before the actual service starts. Granted, some people show up at 11 or later, but plenty of people might come in as early as 10 a.m. for helping with setup or just wanting to spend time with the church family. So if the church starts at 11 a.m. with our service, it may be that people are arriving an hour earlier. And what we can do is we can put in content in the pre-service loop. You'll see that we have a welcome video. We've got some information about upcoming announcements and events, some Bible verse art, links to the various churches' social media information, and more. And that's all in the pre-service loop, and you'll see that next to each item in the pre-service loop is an amount of time. And that time can actually be customized for most of these items by just choosing the amount of time you want for it to auto-advance. But you'll notice that anything you add to the order of service in the pre-service loop is going to automatically have a time associated with it. So the pre-service loop is able to automatically run through all your announcements and content before your service starts over and over. And it means that I can drop in anything I want in my pre-service loop, not have to worry about timing or any other detail, and then go on air or live in the program on Sunday morning at 10 a.m. and know that for the next hour, there'll be great content up on the screen without having to plan it out ahead of time or have somebody manually running it in the back. After the pre-service loop, we have the warm-up, which in this case is a 3-minute countdown timer and a reminder to please silence our cell phones. That will start 3 minutes before the service. So at about 10:57, the warm-up will begin, play once, and leave us with the service starting exactly at 11 a.m. on Sunday, December 13th, because that's the information we've entered into the program. So again, when I go on air, the program will begin by playing the pre-service loop, then the warm-up, and then it will go into the service at the designated start time. The only exception is if I go on air after the service time has already started, then it will begin right at the beginning of the service. And after the service, we have the post-service loop, which, just like the pre-service loop, is a place to put in great content and let it filter after you finish your service until you're ready to go off air. Now that we've chatted about the edit section, let's go ahead and chat about preview mode. You can access the preview mode here next to the edit button in the program. And when you switch to preview mode, you'll see that what we're essentially doing is simulating what it looks like when we're live in the program, but without actually putting out any video feed to our projectors, monitors, or other visual displays. And from this mode, I can review the content, make sure that it looks the way I want. And I can also play with the quick screens and other features such as crawl text that will be available live during the service. So if I want to double check what it's going to look like when we wish our pastor a happy birthday, I can do so here. If I decide I want to change how that's going to look on the screen, I can go up here to the settings menu. And you'll see that from the settings menu, I can change what our displays look like, set up information with conference monitor, and also change our on-screen messages. So I can make the size smaller, larger, or change the orientation, depending on what I'm wanting to do with my messages that week. I can also switch from this full preview mode in the timeline, or in the preview, to a grid preview mode. And in the grid preview mode, I can view my content section by section. So I can see everything that's in my pre-service loop, the line that shows the break between the pre-service loop and the warm-up, all the content that's in my service, all the way into the content in my post-service loop and finishing out. And I can change the size of this if I want to view it. And that also allows me from the preview mode to scan through it. If I notice a typo or something I want to change, I can just click on edit for any given slide and easily switch into the edit mode to make those changes. And again, once you're all ready, you go on air in the program. And once you're on air, your congregation will see all your content. But from within the mode controlling the program, you'll be able to go ahead and set all of your various settings, switch between the full preview and the the grid preview, and also take advantage of your quick screens. So if you need to go ahead and blank out the slide for the congregation, or perhaps show a logo, you can actually change this to be your church logo here, or use the on-screen Bible to pull up a Bible reference on the fly, such as if the pastor says we're all going to turn to John 3:16, but there were no notes about that to make a slide ahead of time, then we can enter John 3:16. For our congregation immediately, they get to see that Bible verse. And then we can just jump to the last shown slide as soon as we're done, and we're right where we left off with the congregation. So again, there are all the options available when you're on air as well. All right, everyone. So we've just gone through the basics of the user interface, a lot of how we can use the edit mode, the preview mode, and then when we're live on air. Now I'd like to go ahead and show you how to add in a few different items into the order of service, go through the basics of that, and then I want to open up the rest of our time to Q&A. There's a few questions that are here on the left or the right-hand side of the screen for you. So feel free to go ahead and look over those questions. And if you have any questions you want to add in yourself, please go ahead and write those in. We'll be doing Q&A time, and we're excited to go ahead and hear from you. Just jumping back into the program. So here we are in the program. We've gone through the basics of the interface. We've talked about the order of service and its sections. We've talked about the timeline, the editing screen. We've talked about the Faith Life panel, where you can invite members to join your presentation team and work together, and also send them messages and ask questions of the team. We've talked about the preview mode, the various modes that you can preview in, and the on-air button. Let's go ahead and add some content into our service now. We've already chatted about adding in song items and how to do that, and also how we can take advantage of the song select by CCLI connected to our account to pull up the lyrics easily. Now let's go ahead and pull in a Bible item. You'll notice that the Bible item dropped in to the warm-up because that's where I most recently had a section clicked, but I can just drag and drop that. And let's say that some of our scripture is going to be in John 4:1 through 13. So about 9 verses. I can go ahead and tell the program we want to do that. You'll see I can choose the Bible translation. And it automatically brings it in to the slide for me. Previews all the text so they'll know what I'm showing. And then I can also go in and change the background if I want to pick something in a little bit different vein. You'll notice that earlier we went ahead and browsed the media browser where all sorts of great content is made available to you. But I can also import my own backgrounds, choose from standard backgrounds, or have backgrounds suggested based on other similar content in my presentation. When I find the background I like, I just select it. Again, we'll see that the program converts all of our content directly over and into the new format. Anytime you're using a slide that's made for Proclaim, it will use what we call smart media to convert and format your slide and your words in a way that looks nice and saves you the time of having to worry about those formatting details. We just showed the Bible item. Let's chat now about the on-screen Bible. This is just like the quick screen we just showed. However, you can display the quick screen or the on-screen Bible in a few different styles. When you set up the on-screen Bible, you can choose the translation, choose the section of text you want to do, and in this case, let's say it's going to be John 1:1, also John 3:16, and John 4:4 through 7. You notice that it's pulling up each of these. And let's go into the preview mode to see what this looks like for our congregation when we begin this section. So when we're ready, we'll see that we're at the slide beforehand. As we move into the slide with the on-screen Bible, you'll see that it pulls up that text. And then in a very natural way, we can do scripture or sermon reading with the congregation and scan through the various content. You'll see that it jumps down to the next slide and the next verse for us. Then it will move on to the next verse. And we can even go in reverse order and have it scan back up. And we can use this to navigate through scripture in a really elegant way for our congregations. Proclaim comes preloaded with 23 Bible versions, which means you have tons of access to the type of translation you want and the ability to present the Bible to your congregation with ease using the Bible and the on-screen Bible items. There's tons of other items here. Let's talk briefly about the announcement item. When I want to make an announcement, I can start by coming up with the topic. So say we're having a Christmas party. Bring food and a present for the community. You'll see that again, everything's being edited and added on the right-hand side. Church sanctuary. You can give a contact info such as Wyatt at proclaimonline.com, which is the same contact that you can actually use to reach us with any questions or feedback after today. And I can enter the information. Here, I could go ahead and select the date, or I can just type in when it's going to happen. In this case, next Sunday. Where it will immediately pull up the date for us and then let us know that Sunday, December 13th, we're having the Christmas party. From there, I can choose to add a time if I like. And just like that, we made our announcement. And you'll see that in the announcement, this has a little symbol right here. And this symbol's appear on some of the other slides as well. This means that there's actually a signal attached to our announcement slide. And signals are a way that you can follow along when you're a congregation member to have certain content go right to your mobile device so you can follow up later. There's an explanation about signals here in the example presentation and where you can download those for your congregation. And when somebody has that on their phone, they just sign in, say they want to follow along with signals. And it makes it so that when you're showing, say, a Bible text, it'll give them a signal so they can go right to that Bible reference in their mobile app. Or, in the case of announcement, it'll give them information that we can see customized here. So it gives us the information of who they can contact about the event. And it will also give them a calendar reminder so that that can be added directly to their phone and they know when it's happening without having to remember to take home the announcement page from the bulletin. So just another way we're attempting to help serve your church. We could go on about many of the other items, and there's certainly tons of options, but I want to go ahead and instead give more time for the Q&A, and we can always go into more of the specifics of this as we go on. I do want to briefly touch on the start and stop recording cues here. Proclaim has recently added in the wonderful feature to actually record your sermon audio and then use that recording along with your visual slides to publish and make available for your church. And so here you can add in your start recording cue and your stop recording cue. And we actually have those already added into our service. So you'll see that here we have a start recording cue before the sermon starts. We have some of the Bible text, the sermon outline, more Bible text, and then a stop recording cue. And so when we go on air, what we'll actually see is that you can move to the item right before the recording cue, and you'll see that currently we're not recording yet. We can double check from the audio section of the settings menu that our microphone is working and that our volume is coming in. And once everything is ready, we're ready to actually record live. To record live, I'm just going to advance to the first slide of my service. And you'll see that right now the audio recording is actually happening. We can see that because the microphone symbol with the audio feed appears next to the edit and preview button. And while we're on air, I have the ability to go ahead and navigate through the slides, read off the Bible text, take us into the sermon outline, where you'll see that Proclaim has the ability to bring in various slides, fade in text, and more. Bring us into the rest of the Bible slides, and you'll see here on the order service that we're now near the end. When we advance to the next slide, the audio recording has ended. And when we go off air, we're automatically taken to an audio publishing screen where we can enter the details of our audio recording. We can cut out the bits that we don't want. And you'll see that as I scan through the waveform of our audio recording, that here in the upper right, it's kept track of what visual slide I was on. So when I publish this, I can publish this to my church's Proclaim group on faithlife.com, or I can go ahead and even set this up as a widget for my church's website, and I'm able to see all of that right here and then publish that out. So again, just another great feature we've added in that I wanted to clue you in. To set that up again, you set up your audio recording by having the input go into the audio section of the settings menu, and then you add in start and stop recording cues and go on air to get that recording. Once you've recorded something, you want to find it later, be it from your computer or another computer, because everything is synced across the cloud when you're working in Proclaim. Just open up the specific presentation you want from the Open Presentation section. Make sure you're on the one you're looking for, and then go to the Recordings tab to find that recording. Now you'll notice when I went to the Open menu, this isn't the only Christmas presentation I've opened. So it's actually really helpful for me to name, here in the upper left, any presentation I'm working in Proclaim, so that I can easily find it later. So I can say this is live training, December week 2. That means that when I go into the Open menu, I'm able to find it through its other name, and anyone else that's collaborating in my team is able to easily find that as well. All right, everyone. So we've gone through a lot of the basics of the program. Now what I'd like to do is start answering your questions here in the Q&A section. Feel free to keep adding in questions, and we'll go through all your questions. Oh, and then once those are wrapped, we'll go ahead and sign out for the day. So I'm going to start here with one of the questions that we had, which was Gerald Kapanka says, when I lead the services with my iPad, the scripture verses are blurry when I read them. He says, I also don't know when to advance the slide for the next portion of the reading. Any suggestion would be appreciated. So Gerald's probably referring to the Proclaim remote, which you can set up on the Android or iOS. And when you set up the remote, it gives you the ability to actually control your presentation from the pulpit or while sitting with your family from a mobile device. Now, some of the items in Proclaim are actually shown as stills on the mobile device when you're in the app. So for example, if we look back in at our recording, and we are looking at the on-screen Bible. With the on-screen Bible, you're going to see essentially a thumbnail of what the video looks like. So rather than seeing the rendered actual animation on the app, what you're going to see is specifically the thumbnail we have here for what the text looks like. And it will include the Bible reference as well, but it won't have a clear view of the text. And so if you're running primarily from the mobile app, I would recommend, rather than using the on-screen Bible, using the normal Bible item where you will be able to see that clearly, or just keeping track of and practicing ahead of time to keep track of when to do the scene transitions. But specifically in the case of what you're describing, normal Bible items sound like a better fit. All right, Winona Barlow asks, She says, my question is regarding the quickest process to display a scripture when on air. When the pastor requests a scripture from a specific version, what steps would you recommend? She says, I have a process now, but it seems to take a while. Thank you for your help. Excellent. I'd be happy to go through that, Winona. So here we are. We're going to jump back into the program. And so let's go ahead and chat a little bit about how, when you're on air on the preview mode, the on-screen Bible works here with a quick screen, because this is the fastest way to show Bible text on the screen. You could, in the middle of being on air when your pastor wants something, go to Add Item, choose a Bible item, enter the Bible text, and then switch to that item, but it's going to take a little while. By far, the fastest way to go about that is to go ahead and instead use the quick screen tool with the OSB right here, where I just want to enter the Bible reference. But you also mentioned, Winona, that a translation could be specific. It'd be good to find out from your pastor what his go-to translation is, because what the on-screen Bible will do is the quick screen just models itself after your most recently used quick screen item in an order of service. So for example, in this order of service here, we set up with some of the text from John, and I did that all using the New Living Translation, which means that when I go into the preview mode and I intend to use the on-screen Bible, and this time I go Genesis 1:1, it's going to take us right into that for our congregation, and it's going to do that in the New Living Translation as well, because that was the most recently used version. So whichever your most recently used version is, that's the one that will be employed here with the quick screen. And so I'd recommend just making sure that you've got that correct version. All right, Gerald says, thank you. Well, hey, thank you for being here. I'm glad we can answer that question for you. Got a question here from Twyla, who says that the video seems to be repeating itself. I apologize. I hope that's not been true for everybody else here. If there's any way that we can help with that, just let me know. You can also send an email on any question you have or that you think you missed something in the video. Just send an email to Wyatt, W-Y-A-T-T, @proclaimonline.com, and we'll be happy to help you out. Now, this is a great time to keep asking questions. So any questions about Proclaim, feel free to ask those while we're here. And I'm going to go ahead and answer this question from Rydell Williams. He says, how do you export the entire service to place on social sites, websites, and DVD? So currently there isn't a way to export the entire service. However, you can export the content from your audio recordings. So let's go back to the audio recording we made and see how that ends up on faithlife.com, and then how you could end up setting that up on your website as well. So we're going to jump back to the program. And here we are. Remember how I said if you want to access a recording, all you have to do is go to the Recordings tab. You can open that up, and here's the recording that we made just a minute ago. So what I'm going to do is start by making sure that the recording has what I want. There's a little bit of dead space here at the start, so you'll see that I'm just going to highlight that and then delete that out to make the waveform a little shorter. And once we've got everything the way we want, I can give it the basic description. So webinar training. Speaker was Wyatt of the webinar series. I can publish it. Now, when you first publish your presentation, the program will walk you through making sure that you're either connected to or create a group on faithlife.com, which is our mobile site that allows you to set up groups and have your church view your presentations, which allows you to set up reading plans for your church and all sorts of other great tools to keep your church connected online. So it will walk you through how you can create a church group to publish your sermons to, and that will come from your presentation group, which is a smaller group for just the team of people that have been invited to join up here and Proclaim. And I want to show you here over in Faith Life what that looks like. So here we are in the Faith Life group. This is actually a Faith Life group built around the Proclaim presentation that's open for anyone. So if you're not currently a member of this group, you can go to faithlife.com/proclaim and join this group where we let people know information about things like the training we're having today. But we also give them information about how to answer common questions. They can ask questions of other users or our team. It allows us to work together really well with the people who are using Proclaim. So again, this is at faithlife.com/proclaim, but there's also tons of different types of groups. So for example, I have a group specifically for my church. And this is a mock church, but this allows me to go ahead and test things in Proclaim. So in Wyatt's church for video presentation, you'll see that it's right now loading in the same message that we just published a moment ago to the first slide of my service. And you'll see, and so just like that, anyone that's following along with my church group here on Faith Life can view this and watch along. You'll see that when from the publishing screen in Proclaim, you can jump right there, or you can invite people to join in to your church group so you can easily have them watching it. And what's great about this is we can publish this as soon as our sermon is done on Sunday morning, which means that anybody who missed the service or is maybe out of town or not feeling well can easily listen along as soon as you publish it. From here, you can also go ahead and manage it on soundfaith.com, which is the website where all your sermons and your presentations are hosted. And you also can set up a sermon player embed on your website, so you can actually take everything you've recorded along with the visuals and have that available for your congregation on your own website as well, or as a podcast. So right now, that's currently how we go ahead and submit content out. We'll be looking at other ways in the future, but those are the methods right now. No problem, Twyla. Glad we can be of help to you. All right, next question comes from Gerald again. Is it possible to use Logos software with all of its tools and abilities with Proclaim? I'm thinking of Bible studies. I would like the link to slides with hyperlinks. Great question, Gerald. So right now, you can definitely use Logos for all sorts of great interaction in Proclaim. I currently don't have my Logos open up on my computer, but if you're familiar with the Send to Proclaim feature or the Visual Copy feature in Proclaim, you can use those to send content directly into your Proclaim presentation software as you're working. So with just a click, you can send Bible verses, quotations, word studies right into your presentation to make your insights available to your congregation, and then through the audio recording feature to get those up on your site or in your Faith Life group available for everyone throughout the week, which is wonderful. In terms of having hyperlinks, we don't currently have a way to put a hyperlink in that can be clicked on once it's been published. It's just publishing the kind of clip along with what's what I'm looking for. I apologize, I'm still getting this cold, and so I'm running a little bit slow today. With the thumbnail from the image for that slide. So it's possible that you'll end up with a thumbnail when you're working with the presentation, which means that you can't click on the link itself, but you can, once it's published, go put your hyperlinks right there into the description. So for example, let's go back to the one that I just published to my church group. From here on my church group, I can come in right here and I can type in any hyperlinks or references I want my congregation to find so that when they watch this, they can also access those tools as well. So there's a lot of ways to make this very interactive with our church so that we can engage with them throughout the week. And again, for more questions on that, you can just email us at wyatt@proclaimonline.com. I'm happy to send you more information. So right now, I'm not seeing a ton of other questions available, but this is a great time to be asking questions. We have a little bit more time slotted here today. So I'm going to go ahead and just look at a couple more features within the program. And if you have any other questions, this is a great time to be asking them. So here we are back within Proclaim. And I want to chat a little bit about navigating through the media browser and how you can find really great media content. So when I open up the media browser, typically the first thing you'll see depends on if you open it up to the featured section or if you open it up to the My Content section. In the featured section, you see a bunch of the new content or the popular content that's currently being used in Proclaim by other users, as well as seasonal content that we provide as well. And in the My Content section, you can access all the great content you've uploaded, plus content available through either your free content with Proclaim or with the subscriptions that you have. So for example, I have a subscription to Proclaim and also one of the Pro Media, which means I get great Pro Media content from our design team that again is updated every month. And I also get content as well from my church motion graphics subscription, as well as wonderful other sources. And you'll see that I have some specific Logos media because I'm a Logos user as well, which means I have access to certain Bible translation backgrounds and other great content that's just going to load in here in the next minute. And so as I bring in all that content, it allows me to, when I want to find something, say Christmas themed, search for Christmas in my content, and I'll see that I have all sorts of great options here. I can zoom in to get a sense for what the content looks like. And you'll see that in the corner of a lot of these options, there's certain symbols. So anything with this little light bulb symbol means it's smart media. And that means that it's content that we've created that will be formatting and changing for you as you dynamically set up your presentations. So that's some of that content that does the formatting work for you. There's also items such as this video item. You can see it's a video item because it's a little play symbol here in the corner. And so you can use the media browser here to search for all sorts of great content. I can look for Christmas content, maybe specifically pro media content. And then I can also actually search distinctly by color. So around the Christmas season, greens and reds are really common. So I can look for specifically red pro media Christmas content, which will allow me to narrow down to exactly what I'm looking for. And for example, when I find a background that I like, I can just add it as a new item so that we can now start setting up for our Christmas Eve service here within Proclaim. So just like that, it's really easy to bring in all sorts of great content into your program. Say Amazing Grace is a song that I like to play often, and I really like this background for it. One of the things I can also do once I've made something in the media browser and set it up in a presentation is I can make sure that it's named the way I want, and then I can find it later anytime from the Add Item menu. You'll see that in the Add Item menu, you can actually reuse items. So I can search for Amazing Grace and find all the times I've used it and be able to easily find the version I want to bring in again later. So those are just a couple of the other tools that we have available in Proclaim. Looks like there are no other questions right now, so I'm so glad you guys could join us. Again, my name is Wyatt Shed Stewart. If you have any questions about purchasing Proclaim, the various subscriptions, or how to use a feature in the program, again, feel free to email us at wyatt@proclaimonline.com. That's WYATT@proclaimonline.com. Before I go, I want to show you really quickly the help section. So other questions that you might want to find answers to, you can find those in Proclaim. In the help section, you can access that in Proclaim by going to help. You'll see there's a getting started link to take you to the tutorial. There's also a link to the view online help section where you can type in questions such as if you want to know more about the order of service, you can just type in the keyword and find all sorts of great articles with more information about that. And you can also access our forums where you can talk to developers and other users if you have questions in Proclaim. And again, I recommend for anyone who's looking to go ahead and go to faithlife.com/proclaim. So that you can easily go ahead and interact with other Proclaim users, with our team, ask questions, and join a part of the active community. So again, thank you so much for all being here today. Hope you have a wonderful week using Proclaim. Look forward to hearing from you. Any feedback you'd like to provide, we welcome. And God bless.